Is it time for recess yet? I'm so glad you found time to join us here on the Childcare Director's Chair, where Erica Sacoccio shares her best practices that she's refined through her passion of directing childcare centers over the last 23 years. From parenting interaction, systems to save you time, money, and stress, to profitability. She shares it all from the Childcare Director's Chair.
Hey there, childcare leader. Yep, you. This podcast is for you. And I want to just say I thank you for tuning in today. I know you don't have a lot of time. Most of us don't. This episode today is really for those of you considering opening up your own program, or you're a pretty new director and you're not 100% sure of all of the pieces that fall under the umbrella of running a childcare program. Because running a childcare business, because it is in fact a business, is a rewarding endeavor that requires careful attention to legal and regulatory requirements. Sounds like a super fun podcast, right? Maybe not our funnest topic, but definitely one that is extremely important, because navigating the complex landscape is one that really can get you in hot water if you don't know what you're doing. So we put together 20 tips that may be able to give you a good overview of what it really takes to ensure your childcare business operates smoothly while complying with all necessary guidelines. So number one is you need to obtain necessary licenses. It is very important for you to understand what you need to have in place before you open your doors. So research and obtain the required licenses and permits to legally operate a childcare business in your area. And you need to look at what kind of program you want to operate, because the regulations change from family childcare to center-based childcare to before and after school programming. So make sure you understand what type of program you want to open, and you want to check with your city and state. So don't forget one or the other. Next, you want to familiarize yourself with the local regulations and understand the specific regulations governing childcare businesses in your location, including staff-to-child ratios, safety standards, and health requirements. Also, there are so many other pieces, including what type of building, what is required in the building, what types of sinks and toilets are required, what type of furniture, the height, all of those things. Even things as minutiae as, or in the fine detail as, is your rug compliant with fire regulations? Okay? So there's a lot for you to know. So make sure you really familiarize yourself with all of the local regulations and have as many of those handbooks at your fingertips. Number three is you want to develop comprehensive policies and procedures. Create clear and concise policies and procedures that outline your approach to child safety, hygiene, discipline, and emergency preparedness. And a lot of times your local regulations will tell you what type of policies you need to have in place to ensure that everything that is supposed to be covered is covered in your handbook. So working with your licensing worker can really help you develop a well-defined handbook for both your staff and your families. Next, you want to make sure that you conduct thorough background checks. Prioritize the safety of the children in your care by conducting background checks on all of your staff, including all your staff members, including criminal records and reference checks, CANTS checks, and not just your staff. You want to make sure that if you have volunteers that come to your program on a regular basis, that you conduct all safety checks for them as well. It even might make sense if you have guest visitors that come in to have them also have safety checks. You know, many of these local small businesses, like your local face painter and puppeteer and all those folks that come into your business, I would ask them, do they have safety checks for them and any staff that will be coming on the premises of your program? Because again, safety is number one, and you want to make sure that you close any gaps that may be there. Number 5 is you want to make sure that you maintain proper staff-to-child ratios. Ensure that you have enough qualified staff members to maintain appropriate supervision and care for the number of children in your facility. And make sure you build a good substitute and float list, because people do get sick, people are going to call out, and you have to make sure that you have enough backup. The worst thing ever is having to close rooms because you don't have enough staffing, and I know that that has really been something that many folks have had to deal with over the last year or two, so you don't want that to be you. Number 6, provide ongoing staff training. Invest in continuous professional development for your staff to keep them updated on the latest child care practices, safety protocols, and regulatory challenges and changes. And the other thing you want to really do is you want to stay on top of expirations. For example, CPR and first aid. You want to make something that really stands out, so that way you can make sure that you're always in compliance. Because if those are just filed in a filing cabinet, it's very easy for expiration dates to come and go and you not catch them until your visit from your state worker. So you never want that to be the case. So make sure that you have some type of system in place that tells you when certifications are expiring. Number 7 is implement a child protection policy. Develop and enforce a comprehensive child protection policy that outlines procedures for identifying and reporting any signs of abuse or neglect. Number 8 is you want to create a child-friendly environment. Regularly assess your facility for potential hazards and ensure that it is equipped with age-appropriate toys, furniture, and safety measures. And again, referring to your regulation books will really help you with that as you decide what equipment you're going to purchase and bring into the program. Also, be mindful that you want to have a surplus of equipment so that you can rotate things out. It makes for a much more engaging classroom is to not have everything you own on the shelves all the time. So rotate it out really does make a lot of sense. And it also makes sure that things stay in good working condition. Number 9, you want to maintain accurate records. Keeping meticulous records of attendance, medical information, consent forms, staff certifications to comply with legal requirements to ensure efficient operations. And each state has a requirement for the length of time that you need to keep attendance records. So it's really nice nowadays that we have these digital tools, because 10 years ago, we just had boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of files. And so now it's really nice that everything is digital. It makes so much easier to pull reports. And so I'm going to say, thank God for technology there. But make sure that your records are updated, because again, the thing with digital tools is they're only as good as the person who inputs the data. So you want to also do some internal audits just to make sure everything stays up to date. Number 10, you want to establish effective communication channels. Foster open and transparent communication with parents, with staff, and regulatory authorities to address any concerns, share updates, and maintain compliance. Now, I have one little golden nugget here for you. Really, your worker should be your ally. You are all on the same team, and that is to make sure children are safe, healthy, happy, and nurtured in your establishment. So if there is anything that you think could be a concern, it is always best to notify your worker ahead of time. It's much better coming from you than it is from an outside source, and then you can send over all of your documentation as to what the concern is, how you've addressed it, what you're going to do moving forward, or if it's a bogus concern, you want to also let them know, hey, just a heads up, this may be coming your way. I wanted to, give you some more detail. So that would be a little golden nugget there. Number 11 is you want to adhere to health and hygiene standards. Implement strict protocols for maintaining cleanliness, sanitation, and hygiene to prevent the spread of illness to ensure the well-being of your children and your staff. And particularly, I mean, of course, everybody is important, but the more that you adhere to these practices, the healthier your staff will be. And, there's a lot of complaints about staff call-outs, but they're also exposed, especially new staff. The first year in childcare, I was always sick. It didn't matter how much I washed my hands. I felt like I got every single cold. Now, a million years later, well, it feels like a million years later, but many, many years later, I hardly ever get sick. So I guess that's always a plus. But, doing everything you can to maintain cleaning and sanitation in your program really will make it a lot easier for you in the long run. Number 12, you have to develop emergency response plan. Prepare a detailed emergency response plan that covers various scenarios, including fires, natural disasters, medical emergencies, and regularly practice drills with staff and children. It could be fire drills, it could be intruder drills, it could be a variety of types of emergency drills, but make sure that you are doing that on a regular basis, that it's documented both in policies, and then when you run those drills, that it is documented the date, the time, how many staff, how many children, how long did it take for you to get to the safe space or evacuate the building or whatever the plan is. Number 13, secure appropriate insurance coverage. Protect your business and your families that you serve by obtaining adequate liability insurance coverage to mitigate any potential risks and claims. And I love my insurance agent. If you're from Rhode Island, Mass, or Connecticut, I highly, highly recommend Thompson Insurance Agency. They are not a sponsor of the show, but I have used them for several years. Any claims that we've had, they have always been so quick and so helpful. So I highly recommend them. If you haven't had a quote in a long time, or if you're new and you're just trying to get some ideas on what it would cost you for insurance, I highly recommend calling Thompson Insurance Company. Number 14, stay informed about child nutrition requirements. Become familiar with local regulations regarding nutrition and dietary requirements for the children in your care, and ensure that your menu meets those guidelines if you are, in fact, serving and preparing food. Some programs do, some do not. So make sure that you are looking at that. And if you're part of the federal food program, certainly you will have a lot of regulations and requirements around that factor. So sorry about that. Safeguard confidential information is tip number 15. Implement strict protocols to protect sensitive information such as medical records, personal data, and compliance with privacy laws. And this is really, really important now more than ever. One of the reasons I love using our ProCare software is because a lot of things can be kind of put in lockdown, and you have the ability to, allow who can see what information and who can't. The same thing with parent payment information. That's all put in on the parent end. We don't have access to it. So it just gives me a nice sense of security that, nobody is going to take any of our customers' credit card information. As we don't have access to it, it's not even on our premises. So things like that really do help you with safeguarding confidential information. Number 16, conduct regular inspections and audits. Regularly assess your facility, your policies, your procedures to identify any areas of noncompliance and take prompt action to rectify them. And again, I can't even tell you, this is probably one of the number one ways to really stay on top of being in compliance is doing unannounced compliance visits, especially if you have multiple locations and you're not at that location every day. It's so important that you set aside time to go out there. The other thing I would say as a tip, if you are running a program that has been in business for a little while, I would ask for their last couple years of visits through the state and take a look at any issues that they had and make sure that they are corrected and have stayed corrected. So that would be another little tip that I would say for sure. And sometimes it's just like the littlest thing. So for an example, evacuation cribs, sometimes, teachers may tend to put a blanket in it or, a book bag or something. Those need to be empty at all times, God forbid it's an emergency. And luckily, we don't use evacuation cribs very often other than for practice drills. But, if you need them, they need to be empty. And something as simple as that, or not replacing a trash can liner in your trash can receptacle, or you have run out of soap or toilet paper that you have on site, but you don't have them in the dispensers, right? So midday recovery, so important. So some of those little things you will catch during a regular walkthrough of your building. And this is where that cross-training also comes into play. When you have an administration team that also has a great eye for detail, that is indispensable. So really, when you're promoting from within, look for people who really pay attention to those details to make sure all of these little things, because these little things can be a big thing. Making sure all those electric outlet covers go back in, or making sure you have the kind of covers or the outlets that are self-closing. There's so many little intricacies that you really need to inspect on a regular basis. Number 17 is staying updated on regulatory changes. Keep yourself informed about any changes in childcare regulations and adapt your practices according to maintain compliance. Now, if you're in Rhode Island, we just had some new changes in our regulations book. So recently, in the last few weeks. So by the time this episode airs, it might be, maybe a month or two down the road. But, that happens at least once a year. So make sure that you are on top of those things. Number 18 is seek legal advice when needed. If you encounter a complex legal issue or have a concern about compliance, consult with a qualified attorney specializing in child care law. That's really, really important. Same thing with HR. Many small programs don't really have a quote-unquote formal HR department. A lot of times you're it. So you want to make sure that you also understand all of the employment regulations and changes that happen during the state in terms of pay changes or new documents that you need to have, or, any changes in labor laws. You need to know them. And there are lots of free workshops that are typically offered through your workers' comp insurance. They do a lot of things around that, staying in compliance section. So, any of those free resources, definitely connect with them and seek legal advice when you need to. Number 19 is join professional associations. Consider joining a local or national childcare association to stay connected with industry updates, access resources, and also network with other professionals, which for me is super fun. And at this age in my life and this stage of my life, it's probably one of the most fun things to do. I really enjoy seeing colleagues that I've been in the field for a very long time, and I love meeting the new folks who are coming in. I mean, obviously I love people, hence the podcast. So in 20, we'll end on 20. Always foster a culture of continuous improvement. And I say this so regularly, but I really, truly believe in it. Review and evaluate your operations. Seek feedback from parents and staff and regulatory bodies to identify areas for improvement and ensure your ongoing compliance. And if you really are ready to make some serious continuous improvement, go through an accreditation process or go through a quality rating system. I can't tell you how much I learned during that process, found it invaluable, and really found that it was something that gave me a strong foundation in running a high quality program. So hopefully Some of these tips can help you confidently navigate the legal and regulatory requirements of running a childcare business, providing a safe and nurturing environment for children while building a successful venture. As always, thank you for tuning in. This has been your host, Erica Sacoccio. And if you liked today's episode, please hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment or a review. We really, truly appreciate that. If you're not part of our Facebook community, hop on over to our Facebook page, give it a like, a follow, and join the conversation. Thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing day.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Childcare Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Childcare Director's Chair.